Ava Cole settled into seat 14A of Flight 289, her hands resting protectively over her growing belly. 7 months pregnant, she hadn't planned on flying, but the urgency in her husband's voice, calling from Virginia to tell her he'd be home in 2 days, left her no choice. Doctors had warned her about long flights and high altitudes, but Ava was determined. She smoothed her worn denim jacket over her stomach and glanced at the seatback in front of her, running her fingers nervously over the safety card. Around her, the cabin hummed with the quiet chaos of travelers. A father coaxing his toddler into a booster seat, a businessman typing furiously on a laptop, a teenager scrolling endlessly through a tablet, earbuds plugged in as if she could tune out the world entirely. The flight attendants moved efficiently, checking seatbelts and overhead bins. Ava caught the eye of the lead flight attendant, who offered a polite nod. "First flight?" the woman asked. Ava smiled weakly, though it didn't reach her eyes. "Not exactly," she replied. Her mind was elsewhere. She thought of the small apartment in Denver she'd just left, the boxes still unpacked, the late-night coffee she had barely drunk. And mostly, she thought of James, her husband, who had spent 6 months overseas, teaching at a military training facility, and whose surprise return she could hardly wait to see. The plane rumbled as the engine started to roar to life. Ava pressed her hand over her stomach again. "Almost home," she whispered to her unborn child. A ripple of nervous energy passed through her as the aircraft began taxiing. She could feel the vibration under the seat, the gentle push of acceleration, the stomach-dropping sensation as the plane lifted from the runway. Above the clouds, the world fell away. The city lights of Denver disappeared beneath a blanket of darkness, replaced by the dim glow of cabin lights and the steady pulse of the flight attendants' practiced movements. The first 2 hours of the flight passed uneventfully. Ava sipped ginger tea to calm her queasy stomach, occasionally glancing out the window at the endless black sky dotted with pinpricks of light. The hum of conversation and the soft drone of engines became a lullaby, and for a brief moment she allowed herself to relax. But at 2:37 a.m. something shifted. The turbulence started subtly, a gentle sway that made her clutch the armrest. Then it intensified, tossing the plane as if it were a small boat caught in a storm. Ava's heart raced. Bobbies cried, people gasped and murmured anxiously. The captain's voice came over the intercom, calm but strained. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. We're experiencing minor turbulence." But the reassurance was empty. The lights flickered. A jolt shook the aircraft violently, knocking a few items from the overhead bins. Then silence. The voice that had just reassured the passengers disappeared mid-sentence. The hum of the engines continued, but the cabin fell into a weird, unnatural quiet. The usual reassuring chatter from the cockpit, the calm, clipped updates from the captain vanished. Ava's chest tightened. Something was wrong. She looked around. People were murmuring, looking toward the front of the plane, confusion and unease spreading like wildfire. The turbulence didn't stop. The plane tilted slightly, then corrected itself. The overhead seatbelt signs flickered off and on in erratic patterns. Ava's hand instinctively went to her stomach. She could feel her baby shifting nervously, as if responding to the growing tension in the cabin. The other passengers were whispering, some calling out to the flight attendants. No one seemed to know exactly what was happening. Then a strange, almost mechanical voice came over the intercom, a voice not belonging to the captain. "Flight 289, this is Phantom 1, it said, calm and authoritative. Ava froze. The words were foreign, yet chillingly familiar. She'd never heard them before, yet something in her gut screamed recognition. Phantom 1. The cabin fell even quieter. Passengers turned to each other, confusion and fear etched on every face. A flight attendant's hands trembled as she clutched the nearest seat for balance. Ava's mind raced. She remembered James mentioning something during one of his rare video calls. Military exercises, high-speed intercepts, F-16s, code names. Could this? No, it couldn't. She tried to shake the thought from her mind, but the look of dread in the flight attendant's eyes told her otherwise. Something was happening, something beyond normal turbulence, beyond a mechanical failure. She stood slowly, supporting herself against the seatback as the plane swayed again. People were murmuring about the cockpit door being locked. Flight attendants were trying to calm passengers, but their voices lacked the authority of reassurance. They were scared. Ava approached the front of the cabin where she could see the cockpit door, solid and unyielding. The usual sounds of communication, the slight clatter of switches, the hum of conversation between pilots, were gone. And then, almost imperceptibly, a shadow appeared outside the cockpit window. Ava's breath caught. Two fast-moving blurs streaked across the sky beside the plane, sleek, precise, unmistakably military. F-16 fighter jets. They were here, hovering, flanking Flight 289 as if guarding it. The lead jet's pilot radioed again. "Phantom 1, maintain altitude. We've got eyes on the situation." Ava's heart leapt into her throat. She looked around, panicked passengers following her gaze. A man near her whispered, Who are they talking to?" Ava swallowed hard. Her body trembled. She was just a passenger, a pregnant woman trying to get home safely. And yet here they were, two supersonic fighter jets treating her flight as if it carried something vital. Something her. Her mind raced. James had mentioned secret operations, code words, and phantom designations, but she had never imagined she would be part of one. Her phone was dead, signal gone, no way to call the ground. The plane's own radio crackled intermittently, distorted words she couldn't make out. She pressed her hands over her belly, feeling the small kicks of life inside her, a reminder of what was at stake. She was not only responsible for herself, but for her child, too. The turbulence worsened. Passengers screamed as the plane rocked violently. Overhead bins popped open, spilling luggage into the aisles. Flight attendants shouted instructions over the chaos, their calm veneer shattered. The F-16s adjusted their position, moving closer to the wings, visible through the tiny cockpit windows like shadows of predatory birds. The world outside was a blur of black sky and flashing navigation lights. Ava realized with a cold shiver that the situation had escalated beyond anything she could control. She was no longer merely a passenger. She was at the center of something vast, something dangerous, something that required skill, courage, and instincts she didn't know she had. She gritted her teeth, tightened her grip over her belly, and whispered to her unborn child, "Stay strong. We're going to make it through this." And then, just as suddenly as they had appeared, the fighter jets accelerated, creating a roar that reverberated through the cabin. The intercom crackled one final time. "Phantom 1, follow instructions immediately. Your compliance is mandatory. Do not attempt communication with ground control." Ava froze. The pilot still hadn't spoken. The cockpit remained sealed. The plane was drifting, uncommanded, flanked by the fighters. Every passenger's eyes were glued to the front, faces pale, hearts pounding. And Ava realized with a mix of terror and disbelief that this night would change everything, forever. The F-16s weren't there to escort, they were there to control. And whatever awaited inside that cockpit, no one could predict. Ava clutched the armrest, feeling the plane's slight tilt under her trembling hands. The roar of the F-16s outside shook the cabin, rattling overhead bins and rattling nerves. She could see their sleek dark forms slicing through the night sky, precision perfect, movements coordinated. The lead jet's cockpit glowed faintly. A code name, Phantom 1, still echoed in her mind. Ava pressed her forehead to the cold window, stomach tightening. This wasn't a simple escort. These jets weren't here for safety. They were here for control. And something told her she was at the epicenter of a military operation she didn't understand. Passengers whispered, some praying aloud, some frozen in disbelief. A young mother hugged her child tightly, rocking back and forth. A businessman in the aisle muttered something about government drills, but no one believed it. The truth was far stranger than any drill. The cockpit remained unresponsive. The pilots had disappeared, or worse. Ava's mind replayed every movie, every story about air disasters, and she could feel panic tightening around her chest. This was real. And she was not trained for anything that was about to unfold. Flight attendants tried to restore order. A tall woman named Marcy moved down the aisle, voice firm but trembling. "Everyone, please remain calm, keep your seatbelts fastened." But her own hands shook. Passengers glanced nervously at the cockpit door, fear etched into every face. Ava felt the baby kick suddenly, sharply, as if responding to the tension in the room. She placed a hand over her stomach, whispering, it's okay," even as her own voice cracked. The F-16s moved closer, banking in a formation that made the plane seem trapped in a triangle of metal and firepower. Ava could feel the pressure in the cabin change as the jets adjusted their speed. Outside, the night sky had a strange, unnatural glow, the contrails streaking behind the fighters like ghostly brushstrokes. And then came the sound. The intercom crackled again, a voice now clear, commanding. "Phantom 1, follow instructions. You will descend to 18,000 feet. Any deviation will result in immediate interception." Ava froze. "Descend. Interception," she whispered aloud. No one responded. Marcy tried to move through the aisle to calm passengers, but her steps faltered as the plane tilted sharply. The seats creaked and groaned. The overhead compartments rattled. Ava gripped the tray table in front of her, her knuckles whitening. This was no ordinary flight, no ordinary day. And whatever Phantom 1 meant, she knew it involved her somehow. A man in seat 15C leaned toward her. His face was pale, eyes wide. "Do you know what Phantom 1 is?" he asked, voice barely audible. Ava shook her head. "No, Her words died in her throat as another jolt sent her sliding against the armrest. Panic surged, but she forced herself to breathe. She had to stay calm for herself and for the baby. One thought anchored her: survive, one step at a time. The flight attendants moved quickly to secure the cabin, but the panic was spreading like wildfire. People were murmuring about hijackings, emergencies, conspiracies. Ava's own mind spun. Could it be a hijacking? But no weapon, no demand, only control, precision, silent authority from the skis above. Her heart raced. The baby kicked again, stronger this time, and Ava felt a sharp pang of fear. She whispered again, "Stay calm, baby. We'll get through this." Then from the corner of her eye she noticed a shadow moving behind the cockpit door. It was subtle, a flicker, a movement, and then gone. A cold realization gripped her. Someone or something was inside the cockpit, someone important, someone powerful, and for reasons she couldn't yet comprehend, it involved her. The F-16s weren't escorting, they were enforcing. She was being herded into something beyond her understanding, and resistance was not an option. The intercom crackled once more. "Phantom 1, a verified civilian is on board. Status, pregnant. Prepare for containment protocol. Comply immediately." Ava's blood ran cold. Containment protocol, pregnant, her pulse spiked. Containment, what did that mean? The passengers around her muttered nervously, glancing between each other and the cockpit, eyes wide with fear. Ava's stomach twisted. Something was coming, and it was imminent. The F-16s adjusted again, moving to flank the plane more tightly. Ava pressed her face to the window, trying to see the pilots. The cockpit glass reflected her anxious expression, doubled by the dim cabin light. Outside, the fighters shimmered under the moonlight, engines roaring like twin beasts of prey. She felt a mixture of awe and terror. The scale of what was happening dwarfed anything she had ever experienced. This was not a flight. It was a stage for an operation beyond imagination. The plane began a slow descent, the cabin tilting as it complied with the mysterious instructions. Panic rose again in the passengers. Ava felt her baby kick sharply, responding instinctively to her rising fear. She pressed her hand to her belly, whispering urgently, "It's okay, baby. Mom's here. We'll be okay." The descent was smooth, controlled, precise, yet each second stretched unbearably, the suspense suffocating. Every glance toward the cockpit made her stomach lurch. The pilots were silent, absent, unseen. And then she heard it, a faint thud followed by a metallic click, something inside the cockpit. The F-16s responded immediately, adjusting position as if to brace for a threat. Ava froze, her mouth dry, heart hammering. The intercom remained silent, but the tension was palpable. She felt the cabin shift, the plane adjusting, almost alive. Every passenger instinctively knew something was about to happen, something irreversible. Marcy, the flight attendant, moved down the aisle again, her voice trembling. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated. I know it's frightening, but help is on the way. Her eyes darted to the cockpit, then back to the passengers. Ava swallowed hard, gripping the armrest, the baby kicking sharply in response to the tension. Her mind raced through possibilities: crash, hijack, military extraction. None of them offered reassurance. Then, almost imperceptibly, the cockpit door shuttered. Ava's eyes widened. A shadow moved, clearer now, a figure, silhouetted by dim cockpit light, reaching for something. The F-16s responded instantly, adjusting their flanks with terrifying precision. The plane rocked slightly, the descent continuing, but now under an authority that was both human and mechanical. Ava realized with a surge of fear that someone, or something, was about to make contact with her directly. Her mind spun. How had she, a simple passenger, become central to an operation that spanned thousands of feet of sky, involved fighter jets, and demanded military precision? She clutched her belly, whispering again, "Stay calm, baby. Please stay calm." The aircraft hummed under the combined authority of human pilots and unseen forces in the cockpit. Every second felt like an eternity, every breath a countdown. And then the cockpit door slid open. Just a crack, but it was enough. A voice, calm yet commanding, resonated through the cabin. "Prepare, Phantom 1. Containment is imminent." Ava's stomach lurched. The figure behind the door was still indistinct, but the authority in their stance was undeniable. The F-16s roared in response, moving closer, flanking like guardians ready to enforce an invisible boundary. The plane continued its descent, carrying a room full of terrified passengers and a single pregnant woman, suspended between fear and survival. Ava pressed her hands over her stomach. Her child moved violently, sensing her fear, and she whispered, "We're not done yet. We're going to fight this. We have to." The intercom was silent. The cockpit door loomed ahead, and outside, the F-16s flanked the plane with lethal grace, waiting. The night had just begun. Phantom 1 had identified its target, and Ava Cole was at the heart of it. The crack of the cockpit door revealed a figure silhouetted by dim emergency lights. Ava's heart slammed against her ribs. The figure moved with a precise, mechanical grace, shoulders squared, face hidden beneath a dark helmet. The roar of the F-16s outside echoed in the cabin, engines screaming as though warning intruders. Passengers froze, eyes wide, breath caught in throats. The plane rocked slightly under unseen hands at the controls. This was no ordinary pilot or human. Ava pressed her hand to her stomach. Her baby kicked sharply, as if sensing the danger. The figure straightened, voice amplified through the intercom, calm yet piercing. "Ava Cole, you have been identified as the civilian key to Phantom 1. Compliance is mandatory. Any resistance will result in immediate termination of this flight." The cabin erupted in gasps. Passengers whispered in disbelief. A young woman behind Ava muttered, What does that mean?" Ava felt sweat prick at her temples. The words weren't a threat, they were a statement of fact, delivered with chilling authority. Ava's mind raced, searching for clarity. Phantom 1. Military code. Containment. She remembered snippets of James' conversations during his deployment, mentions of civilian assets, secret operations, emergency extractions. But she had never thought she would be involved. Never thought her ordinary life could intersect with something so dangerous. And yet here she was, a 7-month pregnant woman, seated helplessly on an aircraft that had become a theater of operations. The F-16s adjusted their positions outside, closing ranks around the airliner. Ava's pulse thundered in her ears. One of the fighters executed a sharp maneuver, wings almost brushing the plane. The lead pilot radioed, "Phantom 1, maintain altitude. Identification confirmed. No deviation permitted." The voice was clipped, urgent, undeniably professional. The sky outside had become a battlefield, silent to the untrained eye, but lethal to those who understood. Ava swallowed hard, gripping her stomach. Survival was no longer a hope, it was a mandate. The silhouetted figure in the cockpit moved to the central control panel, fingers flying over switches, holographic displays flickering to life. Lights on the instrument cluster glowed like the eyes of a predator. Ava watched, frozen, as the plane leveled slightly, responding to unseen commands. Passengers murmured nervously, craning their necks toward the cockpit. A man, two rows ahead, muttered, "This is insane, someone call the authorities," but no one could. Radios were jammed, signals cut off. Ground control had vanished from this reality. The plane and Ava was now entirely under Phantom One's control. Ava's own fear was compounded by the weight in her belly. She could feel her baby stir anxiously, reacting to the rising tension. She whispered softly, "We're going to get through this. I need you to be strong." The baby kicked again, a tiny yet powerful reminder that life persisted even in the shadow of chaos. Her own resolve hardened. She wasn't a trained operative, but she had to be resourceful, courageous, focused. She was the key, and if she failed, the consequences would be catastrophic. The cockpit door slid fully open. The figure revealed themselves, a woman tall and athletic, eyes scanning the cabin with sharp precision. Her helmet came off, revealing a face Ava instinctively recognized from James' photos, Lieutenant Commander Riley Jensen. James had mentioned her name once, a decorated F-16 pilot known for high-risk extractions, code-named Phantom One herself. Ava's mouth went dry. "It's you," she whispered, disbelief cracking her voice. Commander Jensen's gaze was unwavering. "Yes, and you are the reason this operation is underway," she said. "Your presence on this flight triggers a chain of events critical to national security. I understand you are pregnant. That complicates things, but the mission cannot be delayed. You must comply, Ava." Her tone was firm, unyielding, yet beneath it, Ava thought she glimpsed a shadow of empathy. Passengers around Ava began to murmur in panic. Some reached for phones, others whispered frantic questions. Ava could barely focus. Her hands shook over her belly. "Mission me? I'm just a passenger," she stammered. "I don't even understand what's happening." Commander Jensen's expression softened briefly. "Normally, civilians aren't involved, but circumstances, coincidence have placed you at the nexus. You are now essential. Do you understand?" Ava swallowed hard. She nodded, even though she didn't truly understand. She had no choice. Her life and her baby's life depended on her compliance. The F-16s outside shifted again, responding to Commander Jensen's subtle signals, a deadly ballet unfolding across the dark sky. The airliner leveled, descending carefully toward an undisclosed location. Every movement of the plane and the fighter jets was calculated, precise, executed with lethal grace. Commander Jensen moved down the aisle carefully, her presence commanding attention. "Ava, I need you to remain calm. This will be dangerous, but your cooperation is vital. The plane will soon be intercepted by ground teams. You must be ready to follow instructions exactly. One misstep could jeopardize everyone on board." Ava's pulse raced. Intercepted by ground teams. She had envisioned emergency landings before, but nothing like this. Her mind raced through possibilities. Military base, secure facility, or something darker. Passengers exchanged terrified glances. A man behind Ava muttered, "Are we being hijacked?" Commander Jensen's gaze swept over them. "No, you are not the target, but your presence complicates things. Trust the operation. Compliance equals survival." Her voice carried authority that brooked no argument. Ava's hand trembled over her belly. She whispered again to her unborn child, "Stay with me. We're going to make it." The F-16s accelerated subtly, guiding the plane like shepherds to a pen. Ava felt a strange mix of awe and terror. The fighter jets were both protectors and enforcers, ensuring that deviation was impossible. The instruments in the cockpit flickered, responding to Phantom One's commands, aligning with a pre-planned descent. Outside, the horizon was empty darkness, a canvas for the unfolding operation. Every second heightened the suspense, the weight of responsibility pressing down on Ava. Suddenly, the intercom crackled. "All passengers must prepare for secure landing. Remove sharp objects. Brace positions will be announced. Pregnant passenger identified. Special assistance will be provided." Ava's stomach churned. Brace positions. She had barely survived the turbulence. How could she brace for a landing orchestrated by unknown forces? Commander Jensen knelt slightly, meeting her eyes. "You will be fine, Ava. Just follow instructions. That's all you need to do." Ava's breath came in shallow bursts. She pressed her hand over her stomach, feeling her baby's frantic movements. Every kick, every flutter seemed amplified by fear and adrenaline. Around her, passengers fumbled to comply, tension rising with each passing second. The F-16s adjusted position once more, signaling readiness for the next phase of the operation. Ava realized the true danger was not turbulence, not altitude. It was being at the center of a mission she could barely comprehend. Then, almost imperceptibly, a vibration ran through the cabin, a subtle warning, unnoticed by most passengers but glaringly clear to Ava. Commander Jensen's eyes flicked toward the instrument panel. "They're ready," she muttered under her breath. Ava didn't understand, but her instincts screamed danger. The descent would begin, and nothing could prepare her for what lay ahead. The plane continued forward, silently escorted, teetering between the safety of Phantom One's precision and the unknown perils of an operation that now fully involved her. Ava pressed a hand to her mouth, trying to steady her breathing. "We're almost there," Commander Jensen whispered, but Ava's heart told her the hardest moments were yet to come. The cockpit remained open just enough to remind her of the human force controlling their fate. The F-16s' roaring wings framed the plane like a shield and a cage. And somewhere, below the blanket of night, ground teams awaited, ready to intersect with a civilian pregnant passenger who had unwittingly become essential to a military mission. The night was far from over. Ava Cole had survived turbulence and fear, but now she faced the true test, confronting the unknown powers steering her life from the shadows. Ava's hands trembled over her stomach as the plane began its slow, calculated descent. The hum of the engines mingled with the roar of the F-16s flanking the aircraft, their afterburners glowing against the black sky like ghostly beacons. Outside, the world was a blur of clouds and night, indistinct yet alive with tension. Passengers whispered nervously, clutching seatbacks, some praying, some silent with disbelief. The air smelled faintly of recycled oxygen, fear, and adrenaline. Commander Jensen moved down the aisle again, kneeling to meet Ava's wide-eyed gaze. "The ground teams are ready," she said. Her voice was calm, but her eyes betrayed urgency. "This is where you must remain steady. Follow my instructions exactly. Any hesitation could jeopardize everyone on board, including you and your baby." Ava swallowed hard, nodding. The weight of responsibility pressed on her chest like a physical force. The intercom crackled to life with a sharp command. "Flight 289, identify and comply immediately. You are cleared for controlled descent. Secure all passengers and prepare for landing at the designated coordinates." The passengers murmured anxiously. No one knew where the plane was headed. Ava's pulse quickened. She pressed a hand to her stomach, feeling her baby shift sharply. Every kick felt like a warning, a pulse of life insisting on survival amid the chaos. Commander Jensen returned to the cockpit briefly, fingers dancing over controls. The airliner responded instantly, banking and adjusting with uncanny precision. The F-16s mirrored her every move, flanking and guarding the plane as though it were the most valuable cargo on Earth. Ava's mind struggled to process the scale of what was happening. She was a civilian, 7 months pregnant, and yet the military had mobilized an entire aerial operation around her presence. A subtle vibration ran through the cabin, signaling the approach of ground interception teams. Ava's breath caught. Ground teams on the ground. The thought was terrifying. She had imagined an airport, perhaps an emergency landing. But the darkness below suggested something more clandestine, a remote airstrip, a hidden base, a controlled zone far from prying eyes. Panic fluttered through her chest. She could feel her baby kicking violently in response to the fear. "Stay calm," Commander Jensen whispered as she returned to the aisle. "You're doing exactly what you need to do. Keep your seatbelt fastened. Remain in the brace position. The operation is synchronized. Timing is everything." Her tone was commanding but laced with reassurance. Ava nodded weakly, pressing her hands over her stomach, whispering softly, "We're okay. We're okay." Her baby's kicks subsided slightly, as if sensing the tentative calm in her voice. The plane leveled out over a dark expanse of terrain. Below, dim lights appeared, grid-like patterns of bright rectangles, interspersed with long, dark strips. A hidden airstrip. Ground vehicles moved in precise patterns, silhouetted against the faint glow of floodlights. Ava pressed her forehead to the window, the enormity of it all sinking in. This was a military operation executed with surgical precision. Her life, and the life inside her, was intertwined with forces far beyond her understanding. The F-16s shifted formation again, moving closer to the plane, signaling readiness for extraction. The lead pilot's voice crackled over the intercom. Phantom 1 confirmed. Civilian key secured. Ground team standing by. Descend to final coordinates and prepare for controlled landing. The cabin trembled slightly with the change in altitude. Panic swept the passengers like a wave, but Ava forced herself to focus. The baby kicked again, insistently. She whispered, "Hold on, baby. We're almost there." Commander Jensen returned to the aisle, kneeling beside Ava. "You must remain calm. The landing will be smooth if you follow instructions. Keep your hands over your belly. Brace when told." Her eyes scanned the cabin, noting passengers' reactions. "Everyone is safe if we cooperate. Fear will make it worse. Remember that." Ava nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. The gravity of her situation weighed on her, yet Jensen's presence gave her a strange sense of security. The first signs of ground interception were unmistakable. Military vehicles flanked the airstrip, headlights cutting through the darkness. A series of personnel moved with deliberate precision, waving reflective markers to guide the plane. Ava's stomach twisted with anxiety. She could feel the tension radiating from every passenger. Crew members gave quiet instructions, tightening seatbelts, checking emergency gear. The plane descended carefully, instruments responding to Phantom 1's control with flawless synchronization. Suddenly, a gust of wind buffeted the plane, tossing it slightly as if testing its control. Ava gripped her seat, nails digging into the plastic armrest. The F-16s reacted instantly, adjusting position, engines screaming. Commander Jensen's fingers moved deftly over the controls. "Focus on the instructions," she said. "Brace positions in 3, 2, the cabin shuddered, and every passenger instinctively leaned forward, pressing their foreheads toward the seatbacks in anticipation. The plane's landing gear extended, a metallic shudder echoing through the fuselage. Ava's stomach tightened with every vibration. Outside, the floodlights illuminated the runway, revealing the intricate choreography of ground personnel and vehicles. The F-16s flanked the plane in final formation, engines blazing, a testament to military precision. The intercom crackled with concise commands. "Align with the markers. Touchdown in 5 seconds. Brace positions now." Ava pressed her hands over her stomach, closing her eyes, whispering softly, "We're almost there. Hold on, baby. We're almost there." The baby kicked sharply again, a tiny heartbeat of resistance, a pulse of life insisting they survive. The plane's tires kissed the tarmac, a controlled, precise landing that defied the fear and chaos in Ava's mind. She could feel the subtle shake as it rolled along the hidden airstrip. Ground personnel moved swiftly, guiding the plane into position with precision. Commander Jensen remained in the cockpit, calm, eyes sharp, ensuring the plane came to a stop exactly where it needed to be. Ava exhaled, trembling, tears brimming in her eyes. The F-16s banked away, engines roaring before disappearing into the night. The immediate danger of aerial interception had passed, but a new tension filled the air. What awaited inside the secure zone? The cabin doors opened under the supervision of military personnel, the air thick with anticipation and the faint smell of exhaust. Soldiers moved with purpose, escorting passengers in groups. Ava's heart pounded, each step toward the exit echoing in her mind. Commander Jensen knelt beside her once more. "Stay close to me. Follow instructions. The next phase is critical." Ava nodded, gripping her stomach, feeling the baby's quiet insistence that she survive. As Ava was guided down the ramp, the scale of the operation hit her. The base, or what she now realized was a covert facility, stretched farther than she had imagined, guarded by soldiers, vehicles, and surveillance that suggested a level of coordination beyond ordinary comprehension. Every detail, from lighting to personnel movement, screamed control, efficiency, and danger. Ava felt both awe and fear. She was stepping into a world she had never known existed, a world where her fate, and her baby's, was entwined with forces beyond civilian understanding. Commander Jensen led her into a secure wing of the facility. The air smelled of antiseptic and machinery. Ava's pulse thundered. She could hear muffled voices, orders given in clipped military tones, the subtle hum of equipment. Every step reinforced a sense of controlled chaos. She pressed her hand to her stomach, whispering again, "We're okay, we have to trust them." But even as she tried to center herself, the question lingered. Why her? Why now? A figure emerged from the shadows, a civilian scientist, clipboard in hand, eyes sharp behind glasses. "Pregnant civilian verified," the scientist said briskly. "Phantom 1, proceed with protocol. All systems green, awaiting your instruction." Commander Jensen nodded subtly, signaling Ava to remain calm. Ava's stomach twisted. Protocol, containment, verification. Each word carried weight, mystery, and danger. She realized with a shiver that the night's events were far from over. Ava looked at Commander Jensen. What happens now?" she whispered. Jensen's gaze softened just slightly. "Now," she said, "you follow. One step at a time. Trust is your only weapon. Everything else will unfold as it must." Ava swallowed hard, feeling the weight of responsibility, fear, and determination coalesce. Her baby kicked again, a reminder of life persisting amid chaos. The landing was complete, but the mission had only just begun. Ava Cole had survived the flight, but the real danger awaited inside the walls of Phantom 1's operation. The doors of the covert facility closed behind Ava with a heavy metallic thud, the sound echoing down the sterile, brightly lit corridor. Commander Jensen led her through a maze of hallways, the fluorescent lights casting a harsh, almost surgical glow on the walls. Every step felt surreal. The weight of the baby in her belly reminded her that this was no ordinary military operation. Passengers from the plane had been moved elsewhere, their faces pale, murmuring questions that went unanswered. Ava was alone in the eye of the storm. "Follow me closely," Commander Jensen said, her tone steady but urgent. She moved with the confidence of someone who had orchestrated countless high-risk operations. Ava struggled to keep pace, her pregnancy making each step heavier. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend the situation. A routine flight had become a full-scale military operation, and she was at its center. Her pulse quickened. Every sound, the distant clatter of boots, the hum of machinery, the quiet beeps of surveillance, felt amplified. They entered a secure chamber, the door sliding shut with a hiss that sounded final. Ava's stomach tightened, and she pressed her hands against it instinctively. Inside, the room was stark, lined with computers, screens, and communication equipment. Military personnel moved efficiently, some monitoring data streams, others communicating via headsets. In the center stood a tall, lean figure, clad in a tactical suit, his face hidden behind dark glasses. He exuded authority. Ava's pulse spiked. "This is Director Kane," Commander Jensen said quietly. "He will explain the next phase. Stay calm." Kane turned his gaze on Ava, piercing and unreadable. "Ava Cole," he said, his voice measured, "your presence has triggered a containment protocol. You are carrying the key to an operation that could affect national security." Ava's breath caught. "Me? What key?" she stammered. Kane's expression remained impassive. "You will see." Ava's mind raced. "National security, key." She pressed a hand to her belly. The baby kicked sharply as if sensing the gravity of Kane's words. Commander Jensen placed a steadying hand on her shoulder. "You need to trust the operation," she said. "Every step is calculated. Any deviation could be catastrophic." Ava swallowed hard. Fear clawed at her chest, but a flicker of determination surged. She wasn't just a passenger anymore. She was central to something far larger than herself. Kane gestured to a large screen on the wall, flickering to life with schematics and live feeds. Ava squinted, trying to comprehend the information flooding the display. There were grids of data, surveillance images, and a detailed map of airspace over the United States. The F-16s, the plane, the hidden airstrip, all coordinated in a pattern that seemed impossibly complex. Ava's pulse quickened. What does this have to do with me?" she asked. Kane's gaze met hers. "You are carrying a device implanted at birth," he said, his voice precise. "It has remained dormant, undetectable until recent signals activated it. It is a key component in a system that, in the wrong hands, could compromise national security." Ava's mouth went dry. She felt as though the floor had dropped beneath her. "A device? In me?" Kane nodded. "Correct. Your presence on Flight 289 triggered the protocol to intercept and secure you before any threat could manifest. Phantom 1, Commander Jensen, was dispatched to ensure compliance." Ava's hands trembled over her belly. The baby kicked violently as if responding to the revelation. She pressed her forehead against her hand, trying to steady her racing thoughts. Why me?" she whispered. Kane's gaze softened ever so slightly. "You were chosen unknowingly at birth for this role. The activation is recent, coinciding with your travel plans. Your presence was both coincidence and necessity. The mission's success depends on your cooperation." Ava shivered. The weight of the truth pressed down on her like a physical force. Commander Jensen stepped forward. "We will help you through this," she said, "but you must follow instructions. Any deviation, any panic could jeopardize everything, including the baby." Ava nodded weakly, swallowing her fear. She could feel the life inside her, its tiny movements a fragile heartbeat against the immensity of the operation. Her hands trembled, pressed against her stomach, whispering, "We're going to survive. We have to." The room shifted suddenly as alarms began to beep softly, indicating the arrival of additional teams. Military personnel moved with precision, surrounding Ava, their eyes alert, scanning for threats. Kane gestured toward a containment chamber at the far end of the room. "You must be secured there temporarily," he said. "It is safe, monitored, and designed to protect you and the device you carry. Any compromise of security could be catastrophic." Ava swallowed hard. Containment. The word sent a shiver down her spine. Commander Jensen guided her forward carefully but firmly. Ava's steps faltered as she approached the chamber. Inside, the area was padded and equipped with medical monitoring equipment. Technicians prepared to assist her, moving efficiently but respectfully. Ava pressed her hand over her belly, the baby kicking in response to the tension. She whispered, "Hold on, baby. We'll get through this together." Commander Jensen's steady gaze met hers. "You are not alone," she said. "We will protect you." Ava was secured inside the chamber, straps gently fastened around her to monitor movement without causing discomfort. Sensors lined the walls, tracking vital signs and detecting any interference with the device. Ava's pulse raced, but the environment was strangely sterile, calm, yet undeniably tense. Every moment was controlled, precise, calculated. She felt both trapped and protected, her life and the baby's life now intricately tied to forces far beyond her comprehension. Kane activated a live feed from the plane. Flight 289 had been guided to the secure airstrip, and passengers were being debriefed and escorted away. The F-16s circled overhead, a silent warning to anyone who might interfere. Ava pressed her forehead against the padding of the chamber, trying to process the enormity of the events. From a simple flight to a covert military extraction, her world had transformed into something unrecognizable. "Containment is active," Kane said, observing the monitors. "The device is secure. The baby is healthy. Your cooperation has prevented a potential national security breach." Ava exhaled slowly, relief mingling with lingering fear. She pressed her hands over her stomach, feeling the baby's heartbeat in rhythm with her own. The terror of the past hours had not yet subsided, but she realized she had survived the flight, the F-16s, and the first phase of Phantom 1's operation. Commander Jensen knelt beside the chamber. "You've done well," she said quietly. "The next phase will require trust, courage, and focus. You will not be left alone and you will be protected, but you must be prepared for what comes next. The real challenge has just begun." Ava nodded weakly, pressing her hands to her belly. Her baby kicked again, a tiny pulse of resilience in the midst of chaos. She whispered, "We're ready. We'll face it together." The room settled into tense silence. Ava could hear the quiet hum of monitors, the distant footsteps of military personnel, the faint buzz of communications overhead. She realized that she had survived the flight, the intercept, and the containment, but the stakes were higher than ever. The operation would continue, and she was now an essential part of it. She pressed her forehead to her hands, eyes closing briefly. We're still alive. That's step one. Outside, the world remained unaware of the drama that had unfolded. Inside, Ava Cole, pregnant, terrified, and unexpectedly crucial, had taken her first steps into a reality far beyond anything she had ever imagined. The night's events were only the beginning, and Phantom One's operation was far from complete. Ava lay in the containment chamber, her hands pressed protectively over her belly, her heart pounding in rhythm with the tiny life inside her. The monitors around her blinked methodically, tracking her vital signs and the mysterious device she carried. She felt simultaneously cocooned and trapped, aware that her every movement was scrutinized, monitored, and crucial to national security. The sterile hum of the chamber was broken only by occasional footsteps and clipped commands from personnel outside. Commander Jensen's voice crackled softly through the intercom. Ava, it's time to begin the next phase. Keep calm. Follow instructions precisely. Do not panic. You are essential. Ava swallowed hard. Her pulse raced, the baby shifting sharply in response. She whispered to the child, "We have to be brave, baby. This is our fight too." The words were both comforting and terrifying. Technicians moved with precision, checking straps, confirming readings, and preparing the containment chamber for extraction. Ava observed every detail, noting the subtle coordination between personnel. The tension in the room was palpable. This was not a rehearsal. Every command, every movement was real, consequential, and potentially lethal. She could feel the weight of responsibility pressing down on her like a physical force. One wrong step, and the consequences could be catastrophic. A soft click echoed as the chamber's hatch opened. Commander Jensen stepped inside, her expression composed but intense. "We need to move you to the operation wing," she said. Ava's pulse quickened. The operation wing, another unknown, another layer of risk. Her stomach tightened instinctively. The baby kicked sharply, a reminder of both fragility and resilience. Commander Jensen guided her gently but firmly, hands steady, movements practiced. Ava followed, every step a careful negotiation between fear and trust. The corridor leading to the operation wing was long and sterile, walls lined with surveillance cameras and illuminated panels. Personnel moved with precision, communicating silently through subtle gestures and headset murmurs. Ava's mind reeled. This was a world she had never imagined, a meticulously choreographed ballet of military efficiency, all revolving around her presence. She pressed a hand to her stomach, whispering, "We're not just surviving, baby. We're moving forward." They entered a massive operation room, the scale of which made Ava's stomach drop. Screens lined the walls, displaying satellite feeds, maps of airspace, and the interior of Flight 289. Personnel moved with rapid, precise gestures, coordinating across systems with silent communication. At the center, a large console hummed with energy, wires, and data streams converging into a single, critical node. Ava realized with a shiver that this was the control hub for everything: the F-16s, the plane, and the unfolding operation. Director Kane appeared beside her, eyes scanning the data streams with laser focus. "Ava Cole," he said, voice calm but authoritative, "your role is simple but vital. The device you carry is the key to neutralizing a threat that could compromise national security. We will guide you through every step, but your cooperation is mandatory." Ava's pulse spiked. Neutralizing a threat, she swallowed hard. "Me? How do I do that?" Kane's gaze softened slightly. "Trust the instructions. Trust Commander Jensen. That is all you need to know." Technicians moved to attach a lightweight harness around Ava, connecting her to monitoring equipment and safety lines. Every movement was precise, deliberate, and reassuring in its professionalism. Ava pressed her hand over her belly, feeling the baby shift nervously. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. Commander Jensen nodded beside her. "You are stronger than you realize. Focus on one step at a time." The words steadied her, though fear still simmered beneath the surface. The operation began. Ava was guided to a console with simple controls, illuminated by soft lights. Kane and Jensen explained the process. Her input would trigger a series of secure protocols, stabilizing the device and preventing any external interference. Every keystroke, every movement mattered. Ava's pulse raced as she placed her hands on the controls, her fingers trembling. The baby kicked sharply, almost as if urging her onward. She whispered, "We can do this, baby, together." The first sequence initiated. The console hummed, lights blinking in rapid succession. Ava watched intently as data streams confirmed progress. The screens showed the status of Flight 289, the flanking F-16s, and a live feed of ground operations. Each step required her full attention. Commander Jensen guided her through the motions, voice calm, hands steady. Ava pressed forward despite fear, realizing that hesitation could endanger everyone, including the tiny life within her. A sudden alert flashed across the main screen, an anomaly detected. Ava's stomach tightened violently. Kane's voice cut through the tension. "Do not panic. Continue the protocol exactly as instructed. The anomaly is expected. Stay focused." Ava's fingers moved rapidly, following precise steps, adrenaline pushing her beyond fear. The baby kicked again, strong and insistent. Ava whispered, "Hold on, baby. This is our fight." Her focus sharpened, blending fear, determination, and a mother's instinct. Minutes stretched like hours as the operation unfolded. Ava pressed buttons, confirmed sequences, and monitored streams, each movement critical. Outside, unseen F-16s maintained their positions, ready to intervene if the operation faltered. Commander Jensen and Kane moved in silent synchronization, guiding Ava's actions with calm authority. The room was tense yet controlled, a delicate dance between human courage and military precision. A sudden vibration ran through the floor, faint but undeniable. Ava's pulse spiked. A warning light blinked urgently on the console. Kane's gaze met hers. "The threat is initiating a countermeasure," he said, voice clipped but calm. "Stay on protocol, do not deviate." Ava swallowed hard, her fingers flying across the controls. The baby kicked violently, responding to the tension. She pressed a hand over her stomach, whispering, "We can handle this, baby. We have to." The next sequence began, cascading streams of data flashing across the screens. Ava's mind raced, balancing instructions, monitors, and her own growing panic. Every step had to be precise. Any mistake could trigger a catastrophic failure. She felt the baby stir again, a tiny heartbeat of determination inside her, a pulse of resilience amidst chaos. She whispered, "We are strong. We are surviving." Hours or perhaps minutes later, the final confirmation appeared. The device stabilized. All anomalies resolved. Ava's hands shook as she pressed the final input. The screens confirmed success. Kane exhaled slowly, a rare moment of relief passing across his face. Commander Jensen placed a steadying hand on Ava's shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. "We couldn't have done this without you." Ava pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby move in response, a tiny reminder that life and courage persisted. The operation room remained tense but controlled. Ava's heart still raced, adrenaline coursing through her veins, but a sense of accomplishment replaced fear. She had survived Flight 289, the F-16 escort, containment, and now active participation in a national security operation. She realized she had discovered a strength she had never known. Her fear had been transformed into action, her instinct into precision. Director Kane approached, eyes scanning Ava's monitors. "The threat is neutralized, protocol complete. You and the baby are safe. The operation continues, but your role is secure for now." Ava exhaled slowly, relief flooding her body. She pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby's gentle kicks. She whispered, "We made it, baby. We're safe for now." Commander Jensen nodded beside her. "The night isn't over, but you've proven your strength." Ava realized the truth. Her ordinary life had intersected with extraordinary forces. She had survived impossible circumstances, navigated terror and uncertainty, and emerged as a vital part of a high-stakes operation. The baby's presence had anchored her, giving her courage she had never known. The facility hummed around her, alive with activity, but Ava felt a quiet calm settle within. She had faced fear and she had prevailed. Yet beyond the secure walls of Phantom One's operation, Unseen eyes and hidden forces awaited. The night was far from over, and Ava Cole, pregnant, resilient, and unexpectedly crucial, would face challenges that would test every ounce of courage she possessed. Ava sank into a chair in the operation room, still strapped to the monitoring harness. The baby kicked gently, and she pressed her hands over her belly, feeling the tiny life pulse against her own. For the first time since boarding Flight 289, she allowed herself a moment to breathe. But the calm was deceptive. Outside the facility, unseen forces moved, testing boundaries, probing defenses, and waiting for a misstep. She knew the threat was far from neutralized. Commander Jensen stood nearby, reviewing live satellite feeds. "The device stabilized the primary threat," she said, voice steady. "But there's a secondary factor, unknown entities attempting to interfere. Our job isn't finished yet." Ava's pulse quickened. Secondary threat, she pressed her hand to her stomach. "Another one, after everything we just did?" Jensen's gaze was unwavering. "Yes, and this one is unpredictable. We have to remain vigilant." Ava swallowed hard, fear mixing with adrenaline. She had survived the flight, containment, and active operation, but now the stakes were higher than ever. The operation room buzzed with activity. Technicians moved rapidly, checking communications, monitoring airspace, and coordinating with F-16 pilots now circling at high altitude. Ava felt like a small cog in an enormous machine, but this cog was essential. She realized how fragile their success could be, how quickly everything could unravel. The baby shifted inside her, a reminder of resilience amidst chaos. She whispered softly, "Stay strong, baby. We're almost through this." A sudden alert flashed on the central screen. Jensen's eyes narrowed. "Unidentified aircraft approaching facility," she said sharply. "Possibly hostile. All security teams prepare for interception." Ava's stomach clenched violently. She pressed her hands over her belly. Outside, the sky had become another battlefield. The F-16s adjusted position instantly, engines screaming, responding with lethal precision. Ava realized the world she had stepped into was governed by split-second decisions and raw courage. Kane appeared beside her, pointing to a live feed. "They're fast, coordinated, unknown affiliation, likely trying to access the device." Ava's pulse hammered. The device, the very thing she carried, unknown even to her until hours ago, was a target, and she, pregnant and unarmed, was central to this struggle. Her hands trembled over her belly. The baby kicked violently, almost as if sensing the looming danger. Ava whispered, "We have to survive, baby, just a little longer." Commander Jensen moved to Ava's side. "You will stay here, but your actions may be required again," she said. "We need you ready to interface with the system if necessary. Calm, focused, precise. Any hesitation could jeopardize everything." Ava nodded, swallowing her fear. Her life had become a series of calculated risks, each step dependent on courage, instinct, and now maternal determination. She felt the baby stir in agreement, or perhaps warning. Minutes stretched like hours. The unidentified aircraft hovered, attempting to breach airspace, probing defenses. Jensen coordinated with F-16 pilots, issuing rapid-fire commands, flares deployed, evasive maneuvers executed. Ava watched the screens, her stomach twisting with every display of aggression. Her mind raced. She had survived so much already. Flight 289, containment, active operation. But now the threat was relentless. Every second was a reminder of the fragile line between survival and catastrophe. Suddenly, a communication broke through the static. "Phantom 1, we are engaging. Target approaching the east perimeter. Confirm interception protocol." Jensen's eyes flicked to Ava. "You may need to activate secondary stabilization if the enemy attempts to interface with the device remotely." "Can you do it?" Ava's hands shook. "Yes, I think so," she whispered, her voice trembling. Jensen nodded. "Focus, Ava, one step at a time." Ava placed her hands on the console, eyes locked on the controls. The instructions were clear but fast-paced, requiring absolute precision. Her pulse raced, the baby kicking violently as if urging her forward. Each keystroke, each touch of the screen was critical. Outside, the F-16s engaged, performing maneuvers that dazzled and terrified in equal measure. Ava pressed forward, guided by Commander Jensen, her fear tempered by necessity. The secondary stabilization protocol initiated. The screens flashed, streams of data moving faster than Ava could follow. The baby kicked sharply, a small reminder of life insisting on resilience. Ava whispered, "We can do this, baby, we have to." Every action mattered. One wrong input could give the attackers access to the device, potentially catastrophic consequences. Her fingers flew across the controls, heart pounding in her ears. Suddenly, an alert flashed in red. Kane's eyes narrowed. "They're attempting a remote hack. Ava now." Ava's hands moved instinctively, entering sequences, confirming commands, executing protocols she barely understood but trusted to succeed. The baby shifted violently, but Ava pressed forward, whispering, "Stay with me, baby. We can survive this." The monitors confirmed success. The breach was neutralized. Outside, the F-16s maintained dominance, ensuring no additional interference. Ava slumped slightly, breath shaking. Commander Jensen placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did it," she said quietly. Ava pressed her hands over her belly, feeling the baby kick gently now, as if acknowledging their shared triumph. Kane approached, nodding in approval. "Threat neutralized, secondary protocol successful. You've done more than survive, you've actively prevented disaster." Ava swallowed, still trembling. Relief and exhaustion washed over her, but she knew this was not the end. The operation room settled into tense calm. Ava's heart was still racing, but her confidence had grown. She had faced terror, taken action, and survived. Her baby's movements reminded her of resilience, courage, and life persisting amidst chaos. Yet beyond the walls of the secure facility, the unknown world waited. The shadows of danger were still there, unseen and patient, testing boundaries, probing defenses, awaiting opportunity. Commander Jensen knelt beside her. "The night isn't over, Ava," she said. "You've proven your courage, your focus, your instinct, but the final phase approaches. You will need all of it and more." Ava pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the tiny kicks. She whispered softly, "We're ready, baby. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." Jensen's gaze was steady, conveying both authority and reassurance. Minutes stretched. The monitors displayed a quiet sky, the F-16s circling in silent vigilance. The secondary threat had been neutralized, but the larger operation, Phantom 1, was far from over. Ava realized with a mixture of awe and fear that her life had been irrevocably changed. From a simple flight to containment, to active participation in a national security mission, she had become essential. And the night's challenges were not yet complete. A soft alarm chimed in the operation room. Kane's eyes narrowed. "Final phase," he said quietly. "Civilian extraction complete. Remaining objective, ensure the integrity of the device through delivery to secure containment. Ava, your role is still critical. The baby, the device, and your presence are pivotal. You must prepare." Ava swallowed, feeling the baby kick insistently. She pressed her hands to her stomach. "We're ready, baby. Let's finish this." The secure facility hummed around her, alive with activity, but Ava Cole, pregnant, terrified, resilient, and unexpectedly crucial, was about to face the final phase of Phantom 1's operation. The night was far from over, and every heartbeat counted. Ava stood in the operation room, straps still lightly secured across her body, hands pressed protectively over her belly. The hum of monitors filled the room, punctuated by the quiet efficiency of military personnel. Outside, the F-16 circled overhead like silent sentinels, wings glinting under floodlights. The baby kicked sharply, a reminder of fragile life persisting amid chaos. Commander Jensen's gaze met hers, calm yet filled with intensity. "This is it," she said. "The final phase. Everything depends on focus, courage, and precision. Are you ready?" Ava swallowed hard, nodding. "We're ready," she whispered. Director Kane appeared, briefing the remaining team. "The device is stable," he said, voice clipped and steady. "But the final transfer to secure containment must be flawless. Any deviation could compromise the entire operation. Ava Cole will be central to this extraction. All personnel maintain strict protocol. F-16s will provide aerial oversight. Ground teams will secure landing. Timing is absolute." Ava's stomach tightened violently. Her baby kicked, almost as if sensing the gravity of the moment. She whispered softly, "We can do this. We have to." Technicians moved swiftly, preparing a transport pod for Ava. It was sleek, reinforced, and equipped with vital monitoring systems. Straps, sensors, and soft padding ensured safety, but it also felt confining, a cocoon designed to protect and contain. Ava's pulse hammered as Commander Jensen guided her into the pod. "You will remain secure here," she said, checking harnesses, "but your input will be necessary to interface with the final sequence. One misstep could jeopardize everything." Ava nodded, gripping her belly. The baby kicked sharply, almost in rhythm with her racing heartbeat. The pod sealed with a hiss. Ava's view shifted to a small screen inside, displaying the exterior and status of the F-16s. Ground teams moved into formation below, ready for extraction. The pod's interface prompted her for a final synchronization with the device she carried. Her hands trembled, hovering over controls. Commander Jensen's voice echoed through the comms. "Focus, Ava. You've done this before. One step at a time. Follow instructions exactly." Ava exhaled, placing her fingers on the touch-sensitive console. The pod lifted smoothly, gliding toward the extraction point. Outside, the F-16s formed a protective ring, engines screaming as they monitored the skis for potential interference. Ava's stomach churned and she pressed her hands over her belly, feeling her baby shift. She whispered softly, "We're almost there. Stay with me, baby. We're almost done." The pod moved faster, tracking a precisely calculated flight path toward the secure landing site. Every second felt like eternity. An alert flashed, a minor anomaly in the device's signal. Ava froze. Kane's voice came instantly over the comms. "Do not panic. Execute the stabilization protocol exactly as before. The F-16s will maintain position. You control the interface now." Ava's fingers flew across the controls, recalling every step from the prior operation. The baby kicked sharply and she pressed a hand over her belly, whispering, "We can handle this, baby. One step at a time." Streams of data confirmed success. The anomaly cleared. Outside, the pod descended slowly, guided by ground teams in precise formation. Lights glinted off vehicles, personnel moving with synchronized efficiency. Ava pressed her hands to her stomach, breathing deeply, focusing on each motion. The pod landed with a soft thud, brakes engaging automatically. Ground teams swarmed immediately, securing the perimeter, confirming the pod's integrity and preparing for the final transfer. Ava's pulse raced, but the tension was tempered by accomplishment. She had survived, but the mission was not complete. Commander Jensen's voice guided her. "Prepare for extraction. The device must remain stable. Ground teams will escort the pod. You will interface briefly to ensure continuity. Follow instructions precisely." Ava nodded, pressing her hands over her belly. The baby kicked again and she whispered, "Stay strong. We're so close." The pod's hatch opened smoothly. Ava stepped out, supported by personnel on either side. The night air smelled faintly of fuel, dust, and adrenaline. Every movement had to be perfect. Ava approached the transfer console. The device inside her was now fully synchronized with secure containment systems. Her hands hovered, then engaged, confirming sequences, monitoring status, and verifying stability. Every keystroke, every input mattered. Outside, F-16s monitored airspace while ground teams stood vigilant, weapons ready but non-threatening. Ava focused on the sequence, hands trembling slightly, eyes locked on the indicators. Her pulse throbbed, and the baby kicked as if lending strength to her resolve. "Sequence confirmed," Kane said quietly over comms. "Device fully transferred to containment, extraction complete, security intact." Ava exhaled slowly, relief flooding her body. Tears pricked her eyes. She pressed her hands to her belly, feeling the baby move gently. "We did it," she whispered. Commander Jensen placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than survive, Ava. You've saved lives and protected national security. You were extraordinary." The ground team guided Ava to a safe area, away from the pod and secure perimeters. She allowed herself to sink to a bench, exhaustion finally catching up. The baby kicked softly and she pressed her hands over her stomach, whispering, "We made it, baby. We survived everything." Commander Jensen knelt beside her, eyes scanning the perimeter, voice calm. The mission is complete, but your bravery, your strength will never be forgotten. You were the key and you delivered. Ava's mind raced with everything she had endured. The flight, the F-16s, the containment, active participation in the operation, and the final extraction. Every moment had demanded courage, instinct, and maternal determination. Her baby moved gently, and she smiled through tears, overwhelmed by both relief and the enormity of what she had accomplished. She realized she was no longer just a civilian passenger. She was a survivor, a protector, and a vital part of a mission far beyond her understanding. Director Kane approached, nodding in approval. Ava Cole, your role in Phantom 1 is complete. You are free to rest. The device is secured, the threat is neutralized, and you and your baby are safe. Ava pressed her hands to her stomach, exhaling fully for the first time in hours. She felt a profound sense of relief, but also a lingering adrenaline-fueled awareness that life had changed forever. She had survived the impossible and thrived. Commander Jensen stood beside her, a rare smile softening her features. "You've proven courage beyond measure," she said. "Never underestimate the strength within you. Today you saved lives you may never meet and protected a future you'll hold in your arms." Ava smiled faintly, tears running freely now. I couldn't have done it without knowing my baby was with me. That kept me focused, kept me strong." Jensen nodded. "That's the bond that no threat can break." The F-16s lifted off one final time, engines screaming into the night sky. The secure facility returned to a quieter rhythm, personnel moving with calm efficiency, systems monitored, threats neutralized. Ava pressed her hands over her belly once more, feeling the tiny heartbeat of life that had carried her through hours of fear, chaos, and danger. She whispered, "We survived, baby. We're going to be okay." Ava realized she had been transformed. The ordinary woman who had boarded Flight 289, terrified and 7 months pregnant, was now a key player in a high-stakes national security operation. Her courage, determination, and maternal instinct had been tested beyond imagination and had triumphed. The night had threatened to break her, but she had survived every trial, emerging stronger, resilient, and aware of the power of life itself. As dawn began to touch the horizon, painting the sky in pale gold and soft pink, Ava looked at the sunrise through the facility's reinforced windows. Commander Jensen placed a hand on her shoulder, eyes reflecting the light. "You've done more than survive," she said softly. "You've rewritten what courage looks like." Ava smiled, pressing her hands to her stomach, feeling her baby stir gently. "We did it," she whispered. "We survived it all together." The night was over. The mission was complete, and Ava Cole, pregnant, terrified, courageous, and unexpectedly essential, had faced every danger imaginable and emerged victorious. The world outside would never know her name, but inside she had proven that even ordinary people can become extraordinary in the face of unimaginable trials.